Welcome to Time for Constitution Study Television. I am Douglas V. Gibbs, your host, Douglas V. Gibbs, politicalpistachio.com, douglasvgibbs.com, and let's talk about sovereignty. Let's talk about state sovereignty. The states are sovereign. They are unique. They are independent. They are autonomous. Yet they came together to be in a union. They follow certain rules of that union. They have rules of things that they cannot do and things that they can do. And the federal government takes care of many of the things they don't want to have to do or they don't believe they should be able to do because it would interfere with the functioning of us as a union, as a country. We also have a sovereign nation. Our country is sovereign. It is all-powerful, and that's what it says in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary. Sovereignty is to hold all power. To hold all power to yourselves. You have all power, and nobody's controlling you. However, in order to get along with our neighbors and get along with other countries, sometimes we enter treaties and agreements and all these other things. And sometimes we even do things that we may not necessarily be happy about, but we do it anyway, because it's a part of being a part of the community. There's maritime law that we participate in, and there's other international laws. There's, and sometimes we even get criticized for doing what the rest of the world does. For example, we secure our border, and we get criticized and said that we shouldn't secure our border, even though every other country in the world secures their border. That said, as a sovereign country, we can decide to tell them to take a flying leap and secure our border the way we want to anyway, because it is all about being sovereign. We're sovereign. It's a sovereignty. The sovereignty of the country means it has all power to itself, and it doesn't necessarily have to do what everybody else says. What about the third sovereignty, the sovereignty of the citizen? The sovereign citizen. Have you heard about the sovereign citizens? The sovereign citizens are those who believe that they are, autonomous, unique, different, and separate entities, and that any government influence in their lives takes away from that sovereignty, and therefore they divorce themselves from all government control. So there's no social security number, no driver's license, no this license, that license. They don't do it. They don't pay taxes. They're completely outside the government because the government, they believe, is illegitimate. It is acting in a manner that's outside the Constitution, and it is not as it was originally. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, those were all sovereign citizens. So, that said, are the sovereign citizens right? Yes and no. The concept is basically correct. However, the fact is we live in this system. This system exists. And I get it, the federal government. I'm arguing all the time about how unconstitutional the federal government is. Things that they do is unconstitutional. I mean, the real ID. Have you seen this with driver's licenses? Driver's licenses, identification, that's a state issue. The federal government has no authority, but yet they are now pushing us in towards this real ID to protect us from terrorism, so on and so forth. Well, it's unconstitutional. So, if I was truly a sovereign citizen, I'd say, hey, you know what? You are not supposed to have that kind of control over me, so I refuse to have the real ID. But if I refuse to have the real ID, what happens? I got to pay the consequences of living in this country. So if I'm going to be a sovereign citizen, really, if I want to truly be a sovereign citizen, what I need to do is get myself on a boat, float out to international waters, and live on that boat in international waters. Because that's really the only place where outside laws, rules, and all of that is not going to be able to reach me or touch me. Now, don't get me wrong. I got a chance to talk to a sovereign citizen earlier this week, and you know what? From technicality point, yeah, they're right. Absolutely. However, the reality is, whether you're right or not about the need to be sovereign and outside the system and all of that, it's really kind of a selfish way of doing it. Because what you've done is you've become a sovereign citizen alone. You did it. What I'm doing is I'm fighting from within the system, keeping my license, keeping my social security, so I can fight from within the system and be a part of the system and fight the good fight, because I want sovereignty for all. I want to take down the system. I don't want to escape the system, become a sovereign system. I want to correct the system so that it goes back to its constitutional roots, so that it acts in the manner it's supposed to, so that we're all sovereign. So I appreciate the sovereign citizens out there. Thank you for what you did for yourself. But the thing is, you didn't do it for the rest of us. You did it for you. And the reality is, until we get this country back on a constitutional footing and we get the federal government to abide by its original constitutional authorities, sovereignty really doesn't matter. You aren't really truly a sovereign citizen. Like I said, only way you're truly going to be a sovereign citizen is if you take your sovereign butt, put it on a boat, go out to international waters, and live out there. Now, that all said, the sovereignty that we may or may not get someday in the future it does require that the federal government returns to its original constitutional authorities, and that means that it only handles the things that are expressly enumerated by the Constitution. One of the ways to do that is not only for us to fight the good fight, but for the states to get involved too, and for the states to say, hey, you're working in a manner that we don't appreciate, we're not going to abide by it. Nullification. A friend of mine has a system in which the states can audit the federal government, audit the Constitution, and say, hey, federal government, you're not following the Constitution there, so therefore us states can get together and we're going to nullify it. We're going to work together and say, you're wrong, and until you fix it, we're not going to participate. Now that's the way to do it. You want to ultimately become sovereign? Have the sovereign states also work on their sovereignty. Have the people together with the states work on their sovereignty together. It's called Republic Review, or at least that's what G.R. Mobley, who wrote the We the People series of books, calls it. Now that is the way to get to sovereignty. So once again, appreciate your sovereign citizens. Not arguing with you, not disagreeing with you. Say, hey, knock yourself out. But for the way I'm doing it, I'd rather work within the system. I'd rather fight for sovereignty for all. Because someday, the states and the people need to be sovereign again. Fully agree with that. And if I were to do it on my own, and I became sovereign, I did it for me. And then the fight is done. I need to fight within the system. Anyway, so that's this time's video about sovereignty. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. So all my viewers, subscribe, share this with other people, buy my new book, A Promise of American Liberty, my last book, The 7 Worst Constitutional Liars. Look them up on Amazon. I have 7 books, for God's sake. If you don't have any of them, come on, start buying the books. And you can donate. DouglasVGibbs.com or PoliticalPistachio.com has that yellow donate button. Monthly donations are great. One-times help. Because all that I do isn't free. I'm sovereign, but I'm not independently wealthy. See you next time. Thanks for the time. Stay safe and, well, stay constitutional. Bye-bye now.